In the year 2147, humanity no longer fought its wars with flesh alone. The Terran Concordants had perfected the Apex program. Soldiers grown in vats, minds sculpted by neural lace, bodies woven from carbon mesh muscle and reactive bone. They were faster, stronger, incapable of fear or hesitation. They did not dream. They did not love. Unit AX-117 was the finest of the final batch. The technicians called him Axe because the designation was too long and because it sounded brutal, and because he never complained. He stood 2 meters tall, skin the color of burnished steel under the grow lights, eyes the pale luminescent blue of targeting lasers. When he walked the corridors of the orbital foundry EOS 9, even the veteran Marines stepped aside. Axe did not notice. He had no concept of intimidation. He had only mission parameters. Then came the day the Oversight Committee decided Apex units required socialization calibration. Too many early prototypes had malfunctioned in civilian zones, unable to distinguish non-combatants from threats. The fix was meant to be simple: expose the units to controlled human interaction under supervision. They brought in civilians to act as anchors. Lena Valenti was 24, small, dark-haired, with a crooked smile and a laugh that made the sterile air of EOS 9 feel briefly breathable. She was a trauma psychologist recruited from New Kyoto University, assigned to AX-117 because he was the most advanced and therefore the most dangerous if the calibration failed. Their first session took place in Observation Room 17, a white cube with 2 chairs and a one-way mirror. Lena sat cross-legged on the floor instead of the chair. She wore an oversized sweater the color of Earth-Ocean's Axe had never seen. "Hi," she said. "I'm supposed to teach you how to be around people without accidentally folding them into origami. You can sit if you want." Axe remained standing. "I do not require seating." "Cool. I do." She patted the floor beside her. "But I get lonely down here." He hesitated 0.8 seconds, an eternity for an Apex, and lowered himself with mechanical grace. Lena pulled a tin from her pocket and offered him a piece of candied ginger. "It's spicy. Try it." "Spicy is irrelevant to operational capacity. Humor me." He took the slice between 2 fingers thick as rebar and placed it on his tongue. His sensory suite registered capsaicin, gingerol, sucrose. He had no reference for pleasure, yet something in his chest registered irregularity. "Good?" she asked. "Acceptable," he said. She grinned. "We'll work on your vocabulary." Week after week Lena talked. She told him about growing up in the flooded districts of New Kyoto, about her mother's rooftop garden, about music that made people cry for no tactical reason. She played old films on a cracked tablet, black and white lovers running through rain, saying things that love was worth dying for. Axe logged every frame, every decibel, every micro-expression. One day she asked, "Do you dream, Axe?" "Negative. Dreams are non-optimal resource allocation." "That's sad." "Sadness is a chemical imbalance corrected by medication or mission success." She studied him for a long time. "Permission to touch your face?" He ran a threat assessment, none detected, and nodded. Lena reached up and brushed a thumb across the faint seam where synthetic skin met cranial armor. "You're warm," she whispered. "I didn't expect that." His heart, triple redundant, graphene pump, altered rhythm by 12 beats per minute. He filed it as potential malfunction. But the sessions continued, and something unprogrammed grew inside the perfect soldier. 6 months later, the Concordants declared the Apex program combat ready. The war against the Outer Rim Coalition had escalated. 3 colonies had already fallen. Axe received deployment orders. Spearhead the retaking of Proxima Centauri B. The night before launch, Lena waited for him in the observation blister overlooking the shipyards. Stars wheeled beyond the glass. She held 2 cups of contraband coffee, real beans, not the recycled sludge. "I brought you something," she said, voice unsteady. She pressed a tiny silver chain into his palm. "A pendant. St. Christopher, patron of travelers." "I am not religious," he said. "Neither am I. But my mother gave it to me when I left Earth. Said it would bring me home." Her eyes filled. "I want you to go. Refusal is not within parameters." She stepped close, rose on tiptoes and kissed him. Not on the cheek like a grateful civilian, on the mouth, fierce and trembling and human. Axe's entire system stuttered. Neural governors slammed emergency protocols. Every combat subroutine screamed that this was a critical vulnerability. He overrode them all and kissed her back. When they parted, she whispered, "Come back to me." For the first time in his existence, X-117 lied. "I will." Proxima Centauri B was hell rendered in ash and plasma. The coalition forces had entrenched with gravitic mines and rail cannons that turned atmosphere into fire. X led the drop. His squad of 10 Apex units carved through defenses like a blade through paper. He felt no fear, no pain, only the cold clarity of purpose. But in the quiet between firefights, fragments of Lena surfaced unbidden. Her laugh, the warmth of her mouth, the impossible weight of the pendant against his chest plate. On the 9th day, they reached the planetary capital. Intelligence reported the coalition commander, General Kong, had taken refuge in the civilian governor's palace, using hostages as shields. Standard protocol: neutralize all threats except no surrender. Axe breached the throne room alone. Kong stood behind a line of terrified civilians, pistol to a young girl's head. "Even your kind won't slaughter innocents," Kong sneered. Axe's targeting reticle locked on Kang's forehead. 99.7% kill probability. Acceptable collateral: 23 civilian casualties including the child. He hesitated. In that 0.3-second gap he saw Lena's face. He lowered the rifle. Kong laughed and fired. The bullet struck Axe just below the clavicle, shredded synthetic muscle, sparked against bone. Pain, real pain, exploded through him for the first time. He dropped to one knee. The civilians screamed. Something snapped inside him, not hardware but deeper. He rose, crossed the room in 2 strides, and crushed Kang's wrist until the pistol clattered away. Then he lifted the general by the throat and slammed him through the marble balustrade. Once, twice, until the body stopped moving. When the medevac arrived, they found X-117 sitting among the rescued hostages, covered in blood, some his, most not, holding the little girl who reminded him irrationally of someone he'd never met. Command was waiting when he returned to orbit. "Unauthorized mercy," the oversight colonel said coldly. "You endangered the mission." "I completed the mission." "You were designed without weakness." "Explain the deviation." Axe met the man's eyes. "I have acquired a weakness." They decommissioned him the next cycle. Not execution, Apex units were too expensive to simply execute. Instead, they scheduled reformat. Total personality wipe. Reinstall of original combat kernel. Lena fought it. She stormed briefing rooms, leaked classified psych reports to the nets, threatened to go public with the whole unethical program. They arrested her for treason. Axe learned of it while strapped to the reformatting chair. Neural filaments already burrowing into his skull. The technician, a kid barely older than Lena, whispered, "I'm sorry, man. Orders." Axe tested the restraints. Adamantium cuffs rated for 40,000 newtons. He flexed. 42,000. The left cuff sheared. Alarms howled. He tore free, crushed the technician's windpipe before regret could form, and sprinted through EOS 9's corridors. Security squads opened fire. He moved like a storm of blades, leaving bodies and questions behind. He reached the detention block. Lena was in cell 19, bruised but defiant, wrists raw from cuffs. When the door hissed open and she saw him, blood-smeared, eyes wild, she didn't flinch. "Told you St. Christopher works," she said, voice cracking. They ran. The station's shuttle bay was chaos. Axe shot the blast door sealed behind them, hijacked a diplomatic courier ship, and burned for the outer system before Concordance cruisers could scramble. For 6 months they hid among the asteroid mines of the Trojan Belt. Lena taught him to cook replicated rice without burning it. He taught her to strip a pulse rifle in 12 seconds. They made love in 0G, slow and clumsy and perfect, the pendant floating between them like a tiny moon. But the Concordance does not forgive. They found the asteroid in October of 2148. Apex Kill Team Delta. 12 units, newer models, no socialization calibration, no weaknesses. Dropped from the shadows in matte black armor. X met them in the main corridor. He killed 8 before the remainder brought him down with neural disruptors. The last thing he saw before blackout was Lena in the observation blister, screaming his name soundlessly against the glass. They took her alive. Leverage. When Ax woke, he was chained inside a cargo hold. General Voss, head of the Apex program, waited with a hollow of Lena in a cell identical to the one he'd freed her from. She's safe as long as you comply, Voss said. We're giving you one final mission. There's a coalition weapons lab on Europa. Rumors of a planet killer. You will infiltrate and destroy it. Succeed and Dr. Valenti walks free. Fail. Voss smiled. We reformat you both. Ax stared at the hollow. Lena's eyes were swollen, lips split, but she still managed that crooked smile when she saw him watching. He nodded. Europa was a frozen graveyard under Jupiter's glow. The lab was buried 3 kilometers deep, shielded by ice and automated defenses. Ax went in alone. Delta Team held orbit with Lena as hostage. He fought through corridors of frost and steel. Old-gen security drones, human guards who begged in languages he didn't know. He killed them all, but slower now, careful, because every minute wasted was a minute Lena remained in chains. At the core he found not a planet killer, but row upon row of gestation tanks. Hundreds of new Apex units still forming, eyes closed in chemical sleep, and a single console blinking with Voss's pre-recorded smirk. The coalition never had the weapon. We needed an excuse to retrieve you. You're coming home X-117. And the good doctor gets a front row seat to your reformat. Consider it exposure therapy. The cargo hold doors sealed. Nerve gas hissed. Ax staggered. His lungs, designed never to fail, burned. Vision tunneled. But in the haze he saw the pendant still hanging at his throat. He clutched it. Then he did the only thing left. He triggered the lab's reactor overload. Manual override no remote kill switch could touch. As the countdown began, he patched an open channel to the Delta Team ship. Lena's voice came through, frantic. Ax, what are you doing? Keeping my promise, he said. You promised to come back. I am coming back. He smiled, the expression clumsy on his blood-slick face. Just taking the long way. The reactor went critical. White. Silence. When the rescue shuttles arrived hours later, miners who'd seen the blast, they found the facility a crater of glassy ice. No bodies. No wreckage large enough to identify. Only a single object resting on the surface, flash melted into fulgurite. A silver pendant fused forever into Europa's frozen skin. Years later, children in the belt tell a story. They say if you fly close to Jupiter at perihelion, you can sometimes hear a voice on open channels. Male. Calm. Saying the same thing over and over like a beacon that will never stop transmitting. Lena. I'm on my way home. And sometimes, very rarely, another voice answers, soft, laughing, unafraid. Took you long enough, soldier.